It's Zach Eady with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Craig Bowers. Purdue gets the 83-78 win over Maryland, open up their home stretch, I guess, of Big Ten play. Get to 1-1, big bounce back win over Penn State. A lot of talk through because, right, this was a game that Purdue was down 5 at the end of the first half. And then Braden Smith and TKR dominated the second half. Defense stepped up a bit. And Purdue was able to get a 5-point win in the second half, or they won the second half by 10, but get a 5-point win overall. So lots to talk to through this day. Good game for Purdue, big time getting that win. Craig, I'll throw it to you for your immediate reactions.
Yeah, I think it's a really good win. I think it's a really important win. I think it's way too early in the season to talk about must-win type situations, but this is a 4-game stretch that we talked about over the course of the last week or so. With Penn State, Maryland, Texas A&M, and then Auburn, that present some challenges. And you hope that Purdue at least comes through this stretch at 2-2, and that's a big step in the right direction. And really, this is the one in the confines of Mackey, and you feel like you really have to have it if you're going to come through at least 2-2 in that period. And I thought for me a couple of major things, but maybe the easiest and most simple one is Braden Smith was aggressive tonight. Obviously, that's dictated by the defense being played against him a little bit in terms of what he goes after. But this is the first 20-point, 10-assist, double-double in 36 years in Purdue history. They announced a little bit ago. So just really, really impressive night from Braden, both facilitating the ball, but actively seeking and hunting his shot. And when Braden Smith plays at that kind of level, as long as Purdue's getting some contributions from everywhere else, they're going to be hard to beat.
Yeah. And for me, like even at halftime, I wasn't too concerned. It was, and Painter reiterated it during the post-game show or the presser, but like Purdue was just simply missing good shots in that first half. There was it wasn't a perfect first half. Maryland dominated the glass a bit, got some stuff inside, but like there was no point where I was like, oh man, like this is going to be an issue for Purdue. It was just like, hey, shots just kind of have to fall. And once that happens, things are going to be fine. And that's more or less what happened in the second half, maybe getting TKR a little bit more involved as well as, or not even involved, but just getting him more comfortable. I know he played a lot of that first half with 2 fouls, which can disrupt things, but it was just good to see Purdue, 1, bounce back from the Penn State game, and then 2, even bounce back within this own game of the shots weren't falling in the first half. You go down 5. Maryland's playing pretty well, to be honest, in that first half. And then they come out and you have, 2 of the 3 best players, if not just the 2 best players on the floor for Purdue in Braden Smith and TKR just take over and let things go from there. And that's going to be the formula of those 2 have to be good. And then Lawyer's going to have to be solid, and somebody else has to step up. Today, that was Heidi. He gets 15 points, knocks down a big-time 3 late, aggressive cuts. In terms of scoring the ball, Colvin was great on the glass. Lawyer was great on the glass. We'll talk about all of that going forward. But, yeah, just a good overall game, I think, for Purdue. And a very, like you said, a very much needed win going now Texas A&M and Auburn, but also just for Big Ten play. Not that it's impossible to come back from starting 0-2 in conference play. It's a lot easier to get 1-1. We've seen Illinois has already been knocked off. Like there's only what 5 teams or 6 teams that haven't lost a Big Ten game at this point. And one of them's Indiana, who hasn't even played yet. So Big Ten's gonna be wide open. Big time to get back to 1-1. Let's just jump straight into kind of some of the big themes for this game, and I assume we're gonna start by talking about Braden Smith and Kaufman-Renn pick and roll.
Yeah, go ahead. Fire away, man.
I mean, yeah. So this is where it goes back to like that first half. It still felt like Purdue was getting a lot of good looks. A lot more, I think, coming. I mean, it was It really was. Like the first and second half was a lot of the similar type shots. It's just the second half, they went in and they went in early, and then Purdue got momentum from there. Reese getting in foul trouble helps a lot. Where now Derek Queen's going to be at the 5, and you put him in action every single time, right? If they're going to play big, that's how Purdue has to beat these big teams. Is okay, you're going to play big, but we're going to play small and space out, and just you have to try to guard us. Maryland's in that deep drop coverage, and like at this point in the year, I don't know how many more teams really want to play deep drop against Purdue. Like that's just not. It's not the formula. And for anybody that doesn't know, drop coverage is when the big that is guarding the screener, so whoever's guarding TKR in Purdue scenario, he kind of stays back, towards the rim, more like what Edey did last year against pick and roll, where just stay back, help protect the rim. That opens up either a Braden Smith pull-up or TKR in that short roll, where now when he's getting to that post up from there, right, he's getting to his spot at 6 to 8 feet in the post and not really far out. And so even when it is that short roll to TKR, even if he catches at the 15-foot, the free throw line, he's not getting hit till like anywhere from 6 to 8 feet. And now from there, he's just going to go one-on-one. He's just going to do his thing. He's going to cook. And that was so big for this game. Also, towards the end of that second half, when Purdue had just been torching the drop coverage, Maryland for a second tried to high hedge, and immediately Cam Heide hit his corner 3 where he was wide open. If teams high hedge, other guys have to make shots. It is as simple as that. You go back to Penn State, even in the half court, Purdue missed open shots against Penn State's hedge. They're there. They have to drop it. They didn't really in this one, but again, mostly deep drop coverage. Maryland also even tried switching a bit. And if I was game planning against Purdue and I had the personnel, I would just switch everything. I think that's the easiest way to not let Braden Smith get an advantage, because once that happens, it's kind of cooked. Like as a defense, you just kind of hope they miss a shot. But even against that, I think they got the one time they got TKR in the post and things were good. So just really, really effective play of, hey, you're going to give Braden Smith an advantage and he's going to be aggressive like he was this entire game. Good things are going to happen 9 times out of 10 for Purdue.
100%. And relative to Trey, I think you kind of saw a tale of 2 different halves in terms of in that first half, Trey gets in foul trouble, has to spend some time on the bench. I was surprised, honestly, that Painter brought him back in when he did and trusted him for some. I think he brought him back in around the 10-minute mark after he went out at maybe the 15-minute mark, around there with those 2 fouls. I was honestly surprised he brought him in when he did. And to his credit, Trey did a nice job not picking another one up there. But in the second half, Purdue did a really nice job being able to get their bigs in foul trouble, specifically Reese, who I thought was by far and away the main disruptor playing against TKR there. And that also impacts the rebounding advantage then as well that they had in that first half significantly. But, they had that section, I think it was around 17 and a half, 18 minutes or so. They come in and bring Caleb in there. That takes a little bit of pressure off of TKR in terms of defensively. And in that, during that time period and then continuing on after that, TKR keeps attacking, gets Reese into foul trouble. He's able to stay out of foul trouble. Reese goes to the bench, and then he just cooks Queen at that point for it felt like 5 out of 6 plays. They went to him, and he was cooking Queen. So they bring Reese back in off the bench with 4 minutes to go, and immediately they go to him. And I asked Painter about it in the post-game press conference. He said that is a play call that comes in from the bench. They immediately tell him, this guy has 4. Let's go after him. Said they'd probably go after him anyway, but they were going to go after him in that spot. TKR is able to draw that 5th foul. It's kind of an odd foul. He's jumping and I don't know. They're kind of back to back, and it was a little bit of a wonky foul, but nonetheless, he goes to the bench with 5, and that was major, right? Because I thought the other really big theme in this game is Maryland is +9 in rebounding at halftime, and they're +4 in offensive rebounding at halftime. And in that second half, a lot because Reese is on the bench, but also I thought they just attacked better. Purdue ends up +7 in rebounds in the second half, +3 in offensive rebounds, actually ends up plus in second chance points in this game as well. So I thought that was a dramatic shift. Now, the other thing that Painter and Trey both said was they played better defense in the second half. A lot of the reason they were killing us in offensive rebounds in the first half, and a lot of that comes from somebody getting beat off the dribble, right? And then everybody has to go into rotation. So now you have a big coming over to help a guard that's attacking, and that leaves their big to clean up the offensive glass. So better defense, improved defense in that second half in terms of keeping the ball handler in front. I think also certainly led to improving that rebounding advantage. But, we talked after that Penn State game, rebounding advantage, disadvantage, free throw disadvantage, 3-point disadvantage, turnover disadvantage. You can't lose in all four of those battles. And they were getting beat bad in the first half on that side and in free throws for that matter, and came back in both of those categories, which I think is always going to be vital for this Purdue team.
Yeah, and even like throughout this entire game, that was the one thing that stood out with the rebounding is because I kept checking on it throughout the entire time was Purdue led second chance points basically this entire game. There was no point where they were like really down. And so it's just like, oh, I guess Maryland wasn't quite converting, which if you're going to give up offensive rebounds, I guess you take that as the win. But yeah, like it was good just to see them be able to fight. Colvin crashes the glass hard today. Lawyer did a good job putting himself in spots to rebound. Obviously, this was more of a team effort. TKR, he gets 8 rebounds. Like, those are the kind of rebounding efforts you need, especially against a bigger team like Maryland. They still lose it slightly, the rebounding battle overall, but they win the turnover battle by 2, which is the other big thing. And Maryland is not as aggressive defensively as Penn State by any means, but they do press, and there's a few times where they get into that jump trap. They have some guards with really quick hands who are going to poke balls free consistently, and at times they'll dig in on drives and stuff. So I think Purdue did a very good job of handling the pressure. Eight turnovers, and I mean only 8 turnovers for Purdue, and at least 2 to 3 off the top of my head feel very much just like a guy didn't catch the ball, or like here was just a really weird pass or something like that. Purdue did a fantastic job taking care of the ball and not allowing Maryland to get out and run that much. Only 9 transition possessions for Maryland in this entire game. Like, they just did a good job, I think, of controlling the tempo. It felt closer to what Purdue wants to do this year. And like, even in that first half, I really thought Purdue just kind of maybe not controlled the game per se, but like still had a good impact on the game. And long term, I'm gonna take that for Purdue over a lot of teams. So do you have anything else kind of big picture before we dive into some of the individualized players?
I guess the only other thing that I would say, and maybe not the entire game, but it definitely looked like there was intention from Braden to go anytime they could to really try to push the pace and score before Maryland could set up. I don't know how many fast break points they ended up with total in this game.
10,
but it 10, like not a ton, but it just felt like off of misses and whatnot, Braden was really looking to get out and push the ball.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how much that holds, because I think there's 2 or 3 of those were just like really long rebounds that led naturally to people running, 1 or 2 off turnovers. But yeah, this was a more up-tempo game for Purdue in terms of just getting in transition. I think it was their most transition possessions on the season. Did a couple times turning the press into a bucket as well. That kind of counts as transition. Yeah, and so we'll see if it holds, because like I said, I can vividly remember like 3 long rebounds where it's just kind of like, well, we're already like beating 3 guys down the floor. Let's just run. But like you said, there was, I think, still a bit more of an emphasis of pushing the ball when you could, some steals, even some closer rebounds, like that one where Rice drives and like blocks his own dunk attempt pretty much. Like that, it was kind of like Purdue got the ball and was just like, oh, he didn't make that. And then from there, they just were able to up and run. So it wasn't like insane tempo what they have in this game. They had 68 possessions. Like, that's not too much higher than normal for Maryland. But at the same time, like, in those possessions, it felt like they were able to push. So we'll start getting into some of the individualized players from this game. Purdue has a big game Saturday where, a lot of those things that we just talked about, offensive rebounding, pace, tempo, things like that, really going to play a big factor. But, well, never mind. We have Braggs on the show, so we're going to throw it to him, I guess. Braggs, how are you doing?
How are you guys?
We're doing good, doing good.
I'm at the
Doing good.
CSGO Sport. Yes, I'm sorry for interrupting. We're at the CSGO Sports Studios here, getting ready to do a Bears pregame show. But I thought I'd jump in because I just got done with all my prep. I watched the game unfold here as I was getting ready. And I don't know if you guys brought it up, but that timeout by Matt Painter with 9 minutes left as they were down 5, that was the pivotal moment in the game. It's a good recognizing of the moment. They were about to let go of this game there. Matt Painter calls the timeout, and they immediately go on a 6-0 run to take the lead, and I believe a 10-0 run in that stretch. Maybe I think it might have been a 6-0, and then man, that guy for Maryland, I'll tell you what, they've got some talent there. So this was not a like Maryland's not ranked, that's fine, but they've got some players, right? So for Purdue to respond down 5, at the half, down 5 with 9 minutes to go. Like I said, I just wanted to jump in and point out just how crucial that timeout was. And that's kind of the thing like I like about the Fox when they're on Fox Sports, because you'll get that live look in at the huddle. And I would have loved to hear the message that Matt Painter had for them with 9 minutes to go, because you saw how quickly Purdue responded in that moment. Obviously, Braden Smith, with some big onion shots to end this game. So just thought I'd come in and add my 2 cents, because I just really, how much I love Matt Painter. He's brought me to tears here on this program before. And so for him to call that timeout there and get the team to kind of band back together, they're staring 0-2 in the Big Ten down the barrel. It would have been their first time in, I believe, in 11 years, I think is what the broadcast said, if they would have started 0-2 in the Big Ten. So, this is a different year. And I think the other thing you're going to learn about this team as we go is we've seen a few games here that they could have easily lost, but you're seeing the experience that they had going to the Final Four and the national championship pay off for guys like Kaufman-Renn, Fletcher Lawyer, and Braden Smith in these moments where Maryland looked not ready for that moment to steal that game. And Purdue, basically just kind of laid down their veteranship and said, not today.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's a good shout out, because we had not brought up that timeout. And it was, I just looked, I think it was a 10-0 run if I was looking at the correct moment, a 10-0 run shortly following that. And that is big, because this was very much a game of runs. Maryland goes up in that second half, Purdue comes back. I think that's a good shot. And then, like you said, the experience is really starting to come through. Braden Smith can just take over games. TKR can take over games. Lawyer can be very, very, very impactful in these types of games. And now you need one other player to step up. Piety, Colvin, one of the guards first. Like, one of those guys steps up. That's a really, really good formula for Purdue to get wins throughout this entire season. Braggs, also your picture quality is phenomenal, and I just had to call that out because it was.
Thank you.
It was like jarring. I was like, oh wow, he is very, very clear. Kraig, I don't know if you have any comments on what Bragg said.
I just, to his point of like, this Maryland team is a good team and has some dudes. I think everybody got a witness. I don't know how many Purdue fans had watched Maryland play before, but if you listen to the preview show, Joe and I both raved about Queen. That's a first-round pick. That's a potential lottery pick. Dude is a dude, and he's going to be really good in college, and he's going to be really good in the NBA. But this Maryland team, just by and large, is really good this year. They're ranked 11th in the net right now. I think they're 18th or 19th in KenPom. This has a really good chance to stay a quad one win, even though it's a home game, which means they have to finish in the top 30 in the net. It's a critical 4-game stretch, and this is a critical win by Purdue tonight, in my mind.
Well, I'll let you guys get back to it, but, obviously I'm getting FOMO if I'm jumping into your guys' post-game show here, but that timeout was just such a big moment in the game and had me fired up here as I was trying to get ready for, so if I got to, do a post-game show here later on to cry about my Bears, I might as well come on and enjoy a good victory first and have some good moments here.
Yeah, who they play today?
They got the 49ers, so we'll see.
Okay.
I did pick them to win, but
your future head coach.
Yeah, well, right? We'll see, so it very well could be. And I saw Purdue, speaking of head coaches, I saw Purdue football sign their head coach. I don't know if you guys had brought that up on the program yet, but So big news traveling around here. But I'll let you guys back to it. Great win for Purdue. Way to get back off, get their first win in Big Ten play, and continue to battle through. It certainly seems like when you watched Illinois and Northwestern the other night, and you're kind of seeing Wisconsin. Marquette obviously showed Wisconsin, Marquette's team to be reckoned with this year. But I just think overall the Big Ten is pretty evenly balanced. I don't know if there's a team that's best in the country ability, but I think that across the board, I think there's a lot of teams that, are going to have their say, and there's not going to be very many easy wins, in this conference this year.
There really, really aren't. There's anywhere from 6 to probably 10 teams you can make an argument for number one in the conference right now in the Big Ten. It is wide open, and that's where getting this win is so big. Is it takes a little bit of pressure coming back in January when Big Ten play does resume. So, Braggs, I don't know if you got to get going, we'll let you go, but obviously you can stand as long as you want.
No, I appreciate you guys letting me hop in. I'm sorry. I know I'm smoking a stogie, so sorry, Lynn. She's told me to stop. I probably should. It's a filthy habit, but enjoying my time. Getting ready to do a pregame show. Wanted to come in, tell you guys I love you, and go Boilers. That was a great win.
Yep. Appreciate you hopping on. So, Kraig, do you have something do you want to do ad read?
No, I was just thinking first, I was going to eventually get to it, but just because it's just been officially announced, Purdue does hire Barry Odom from UNLV, who was prior to that at Missouri, had successful stints at both of those. I'm sure a lot of people are going to discuss this hire. I've seen a lot of Purdue fans excited about it, but been successful at both stops along the way in different seasons. From what I've heard, who knows how much truth is to this, but supposedly there was conversations about part of his staff coming with him from UNLV as well. His offensive coordinator has been one of the more innovative guys and successful guys in terms of running offense in college football, and they've also got one of the best special teams coaches in the country too. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. I think Tuesday in Mackey, Tuesday morning is when they're going to have a special news conference event for that. So I'm sure Purdue fans are excited. Joe's not a Purdue football fan. I am. I don't think you are, Joe. Is that safe to say? Or
I mean, I am in the fact that I root for Purdue and everything. I don't care about college football.
Right. So, but a lot of our fans do. So did want to get that out there. But yeah, let's go ahead and acknowledge our sponsor for today as well. Crop Insurance Specialties. We all know prices are on the rise and your insurance is no different. But the last thing we want to do is deal with multiple companies to try to get a quote. Why not instead call Adam Scheller at Crop Insurance Specialists at 317-385-5293. His experience and multitude of access to insurance companies allow you to push the easy button on your insurance. Remember, push the easy button and call Adam Scheller at 317-385-5293 for all your insurance needs. As we talked about in the last show, Adam Scheller is a Purdue grad, season ticket holder for Purdue football, lives in the Hamilton County area down around Indianapolis, but handles insurance not just agriculturally around crops, but also, home, auto, all those good things, life insurance. So give Adam a call. We certainly appreciate your supports and advertisement on the show.
Yep. Appreciate the support and the sponsor for the show. Everybody that's here, if you please like the stream on YouTube. Takes 2 seconds. Does really, really just help us out. And we'll kind of get to the second half of our show. Shout out Purdue Volleyball. We did it on the preview, but shout out Purdue Volleyball takes on Louisville in the Sweet 16 next week. I don't know if official dates and times have been set out, but football news, volleyball's cooking. Purdue basketball gets a big time win. Women's basketball played well against Maryland. I believe that was yesterday or 2 days. I think it was yesterday. My days are all mixed up.
I think they got one of their guards back, right? Amia. I think it came back. And look, don't give up on Purdue women's basketball. They're dealing with a lot of injuries this year, and there's a lot of talent that's still waiting to come back to that team for Katie. Do not give up on that. Did you see how close Purdue was to almost playing Northern Iowa in volleyball instead of Louisville? Oh, man.
Yeah.
Floodgates about open there for an Elite Eight run. But, I mean, they still have a really good chance. Get down to Louisville, support your Purdue Boilermaker women's volleyball team travel just like you travel for basketball, man. It's a close drive.
Yep, for sure. So let's get into the second half of the show. Jeff Park says close to 3K subs. Hit that subscribe if you haven't yet. Appreciate the support. Here is Purdue stats. We talked briefly about the Braden Smith TKR pick and roll. I want to start, I guess, with Braden Smith. 24 points, 9 of 15 shooting, 5 of 9 from 3, 4 rebounds, 10 assists, 1 turnover, 1 block, 2 steals, 40 minutes. I was texting with somebody before the game, Isaac Trotter from 247, and he was just like, hey, this kind of feels like it needs to be a Braden Smith masterclass. And that's exactly what this game was, a Braden Smith masterclass. 24 points, 10 assists, 1 turnover. In that second half alone, 15 points, 5 assists. He goes 5 of 6 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3. You saw him very early in the game, like within the first 2 to 3 minutes, it felt like he passed up 1 or 2 open looks. And it was just like, why is this happening again? Like, why, what's going on? And then from there, I think the aggression really started kicking in, because that first half, he still had 9 shot attempts. They just didn't fall. They were good looks, and they simply didn't fall. And that's where just this team, more so than years, especially the last 2 years with Edie, this team is just such a, like, it's a make or miss sport, right? And this Purdue team is a make or miss team. They only take 14 shots at the rim out of their 66. They only get to the foul line 13 times. Do jumpers fall? And Braden Smith's really got going with the jumper in that second half, and he's going to have the confidence, and he's going to shoot the ball extremely well not every game, but more often than not. What is he? He's at 42% from 3 on the year. We talked about before, right? The deep drop that Braden Smith can get into. He's able to push the ball a bit more this game, get on transition. He sets Lawyer up once or twice, and just does a good job of finding players. And then from there, it makes life easy when you can just come off a screen, drive to the 15-foot mark, throw a bounce pass to TKR rolling, and just let him go to work. And that was what they needed from him, and that was exactly what they got from Braden Smith.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, first 20 and 10 point assist, double in like 36 years for Purdue, I think is what it said, which would have been Troy Lewis back from the 80s. Don't know if you're familiar with that name or not, Joe, but
I know the name.
Three Amigos, Troy Lewis, Everett Stevens, and Oliver, I think, was the third guy, if I remember right. But a legend in Purdue circles, so that was huge to see. Like you said, I was nervous when he passed up those first couple. I was like, oh, come on, like we need aggressive Braden today. He flipped that switch and really got heated up, especially in the second half from 3-point range. You know, him and Fletch both started just a little bit slow out of the gates from 3, but in the second half, obviously turned it on. But just an all around game from Braden, and like you were talking about with the drop coverage, I just feel like anytime Braden sees drop coverage, he just smells blood in the water at that point, and he has to, right, in those situations.
Yeah, 100%. And I think because we haven't really talked too much about the defense yet today, like I don't think the defense was good, to be honest, for Purdue today. The reason I'm connecting the dots here is I know for sure I think Braden once or twice just got caught on these like flare screens where Purdue's not really looking. They're not monitoring where they need to go, what they got to do in terms of, are they going to switch to those screens? Are they going to stay connected? Are they going to try to navigate them? And so I'm just bringing it up now because I know Braden got caught on a few, but he was far from the only one. We'll talk a little bit more about the defense as we get into some of these other players. We got to go to TKR next, though, right? I assume that's the natural segue. 21 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal, and 32 minutes of play. I'll throw it to you, kind of your thoughts on TKR's game.
I thought it was a really good game for him, but it seems like we keep saying this with TKR at times. Really heavy towards the second half in terms of point production. Some of that obviously came from foul trouble, but once he was able to pair up against Queen, Reese is the better post defender between those two right now. And once he was able to get Reese into a little bit of foul trouble and just really got to feast on Queen from that point on. One of the things that Painter has brought up again and again is that if they're going to play this small ball type of lineup, that he's got to be able to rebound at a high level. Gets to 8 rebounds today. I think that's absolutely critical. But he just ate once he saw a guy on him that's not necessarily a super experienced, highly efficient post defender. When he gets that going, he's just going to keep going and going and going, and Purdue's going to keep feeding the ball back to him. Thought he had a couple of really nice passes in this game as well. From a defensive standpoint, obviously there's some things that are just a little bit concerning. Thought he held up relatively well, but he does pick up those 2 fouls. Makes you wonder if we look further down the road against some of these teams that have 2 bigs that we're going to line up against, if Painter doesn't maybe go to a slightly different lineup quicker off the bench just to try to keep Trey out of foul trouble so he don't end up in that situation early on. Because if the second half, if things maybe go just a little bit different there from a foul perspective, this game could look different too.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and I think, yeah, that's like, we look at the rotation here, right? And TKR plays, what is that, 12 first half minutes because of that foul trouble. Shout out Painter for bringing him back in with 2 fouls. Like, that was just what needed to happen in this game. And Painter did go do it. TKR, Smith, Lawyer, or that Colvin. Did Colvin play 20 second half minutes, or is my thing way off?
How many second half minutes?
Yeah, I messed something up with this. Oh, those were supposed to the Colvin. Yeah, those were supposed to be Lawyers. That's my bad on that. But what I wanted to emphasize, TKR, Braden, they play all 20 second half minutes because that is where this game needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you rely on your 2 best players, and those 2 best players are going to be better than a lot of other teams' 2 best players, and that's inherently is going to give Purdue lots of chances in really any game that they go to. So I don't have too much more on TKR. Like, really good, obviously, on the roll. I don't think he got too many just pure post-ups, but when he did, got to work there, was able to just kind of go one-on-one for the most part. And when you do that, TKR is probably going to feast more often than not. I got nothing really else on him. I don't know if, like, did anything stand out defensively to you?
No, not really. I did think he was better when he was, catching in that short roll and then either being able to take that little push shot or take 2 or 3 dribbles and then go into his move. Because the few times that they did kind of truly post him up, Queen and Reese were able to get a couple of blocks on him. So I just like him when he's moving so much more. If he's going to play guys that are his size or higher, I know it may say, I think Trey and Reese are both listed at 6'9", right?
I think so.
Or is Reese listed at 6'10"?
Reese is listed at 6'9".
And Trey is also, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them is not 6'9". That's all I'm saying. Either Reese is taller or Trey's shorter, because standing side by side, they're not the same height. So when he goes against these bigger bigs, I just like him on the move so much better.
Oh, and that's okay. So, because I had a thought and then it left my head. That's where I wanted to bring up with that is, I do think we need to, like, maybe not give Painter more credit. Right? Purdue fans know he's one of the best coaches in the country. He's the best coach in the conference. Imagine, like, a few years ago saying that Painter was just going to run pick and roll. They ran 29 pick and rolls today that, like, either had a shot or a turnover from it. They had 10 post-ups. Like, imagine a few years ago saying that that's what Purdue's offense is, but that's what it is right now. And shout out to Painter, credit to Painter for, like, knowing that, hey, that's just the way that Purdue has to win, is you have to put the ball in your best player's hands, one of the best point guards in the entire country, and let him go to work and let him facilitate. And now you have this 6'9", 4'5" hybrid that can catch on the move, really good touch, good footwork, can finish through physicality, right? Had 1 or 2 and ones in this game. They just kept going to it, and it was just over and over. It wasn't complex sets a lot, honestly, in that second half. It wasn't, we have to do all this to set this up. Obviously, they still mix that stuff in because they do a good job of that, but it was, hey, we're going to give the ball to the best player and let him go to work, and he's going to pass it to, 1A or 1B. I don't care who you put above each other in Smith and TKR combos, but so credit to Painter for doing that, and also for bringing TKR back in with 10, with 2 fouls with 10 minutes left in that first half. So that was the other thing I made sure I wanted to hit on. Jump to Lawyer or Heidi? I'll let you pick.
Let's go to Lawyer next.
All right, Lawyer for this game, 12 points, 4 of 11 overall, 3 of 7 from 3, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 turnover, 1 steal. It was a good Lawyer game. Knocks down a few big-time threes, rebounded the ball really, really well. And it wasn't it wasn't the perfect defensive game for Lawyer. And there was a couple times I think he closed out maybe hands low or closed out just a little late on some shooters. But for the most part, it wasn't a game where I was like, oh man, Lawyer's getting torched. And Maryland has the guards to be able to do that if they wanted, right? With Gillespie's obviously the head of that, but Rice and Miguel both can do it. Sean Harris-Smith is a driver. He's not a shooter, but he's a physical driver off the bench. And Lawyer wasn't perfect, but I thought he was very good in terms of just not getting cooked. And I guess that's kind of all I want from Lawyer defensively. If he gives you a steal here or there on top of it, great, but just be serviceable.
Yeah, and I mean, there was, I don't know if you remember, it was either the first or second play of the game. Rice cooks him pretty bad.
Yeah.
You talk about first misses being loud. I think people jump on Lawyer about his defense because some of his defensive mistakes look loud when a guy just breaks him down.
Yeah.
And that one was loud of oh my. But really after that, I thought he did hold up pretty well. Got in there a couple of different times and got dirty and got, his hands on some balls there just to disrupt things a little bit. But I think really just as importantly with this team, one thing Painter talked about in the post-game press conference is, they're really telling their bigs to box out and let the wings come in and rebound. I mean, they're still obviously going to try to get the rebound, but make sure they put bodies on people, clear space, and then they're telling their wings to really crash in and try to help out on the rebounding side. With the way they're going to have to rebound without a 7-footer out there this year or without 2 bigs. And I think it's really important for all the wings to contribute to the game in other ways outside of scoring. We've seen it with Miles. We've seen it with Cam at different times. And tonight you really saw that with Lawyer. 7 is his career high ever. 6 was his previous career high. And, a couple of games ago, I think he only finishes with 4 or 5, but I remember a stretch towards the end of the first half, Fletch was leading the team with 4 or 5 rebounds. So it's just good to see him, adding that, I guess, extra effort or extra part to what he's bringing to the game as well.
Yeah. And I think, I do think some of it is Purdue has Lawyer and Smith oftentimes go to the nail, the 15-foot line, or the free throw line, I guess. But that's where they kind of have them stationed in terms of when they try to attack the glass and things like that. You want TKR boxing out. You want Heidi and Colvin flying in. And Lawyer and Smith do a good job of just kind of lurking and getting those spots. And there was a lot of longer rebounds today. And Lawyer did a good job getting them. There was a few obviously very uncontested, but there was a few where he had to fight for them a little bit. And that's a big thing. If you can get that from him, that's not something you expect, but if you can get it, it is very much an added bonus. But yeah, so he knocked down some shots, brought some other things. That's just kind of what Lawyer is at this point. We go to, unless you had something.
Well, I mean, the 3 at the start of the second half was huge. And Purdue specifically, or PJ dialed that up and called that for him. They seem to do that a lot to start set. I would love to see a chart going back on this season because I feel like every second half first possession is either a TKR post or, short roll, one of the two. We're going to feed TKR right out of the gate, or it's a Fletcher Lawyer 3 design setup. And they go to him right away. Hits that, comes back and hits the second one a little bit later. And then that's kind of when Braden went on his stretch of going off. I thought that was a really, really big swing just to come out in the second half after the turnover pick 6 that opened up that half.
That second 3 especially, because that first 3 was kind of semi-transition type. That second 3 was huge. That was a Maryland is up 7. They're starting to push a little bit.
Yeah.
Purdue can't create a single thing, and Lawyer hits a sidestep 3 over Queen. That was a massive 3. Cuts the lead back to 4, calms Purdue down a bit, and then that was big. And going back to your defensive point, I agree. When Lawyer gets burned, it's a wide open layup. Whereas if other players get burned, it's a contested-ish layup still. And yeah, it really does stand out. And like you said, that like Lawyer did get burned a couple times, but it wasn't as consistent as some other games that we've seen from him. Heidi, 15 points, 3 rebounds for him, 2 blocks as well. He benefited a lot from getting in transition. I think 4 or 6 of his points came in transition, if I'm remembering correctly. What do you see from Heidi in this game?
Well, I thought he just found different ways to score. So he has the one lob. The other time in transition, right, he gets the lob that ends up getting called a goaltend. Late in the game, they break press. He drives baseline and throws down a dunk. He had a really nice 45 cut early in the game where Braden's kind of driving baseline and he just cuts from the wing directly towards the basket. Braden finds him and he scores. And then he knocked down that huge 3. And I really thought that 3 was massive and kind of put the nail in the coffin. And I don't know the first or second game of the year that Cam takes that shot. We talked about him seeming to, from the outside, just seeming like he wasn't confident of when do I go ahead and pull the trigger. And he was 0-3 from 3 at that point, right? And just steps into that with a ton of confidence and drills that. And I thought that kind of wrapped up the game for the most part. So, I mean, shout out to him. It's obvious that, he understands now that when he's open, he's got to pull the trigger. He can't worry about the moment or the situation. Obviously, thought he did some other things nice today defensively, really crashed glass. He only got like 4 rebounds today, but he flew in there on quite a few where he doesn't end up with it, but somebody else does. So obviously, really nice game. Some of those points came kind of later down the stretch, gets to the free throw. I think he gets fouled, hits 2 at the free throw line. But, it's whether it's him or whether it's Miles, maybe CJ in some games, but somebody else has got to step up as a, double digit or 9-point type scorer in these games, especially when one of the 3, either TKR, Lawyer, or Smith, don't really have it going offensively. And it's just nice that we see, again, one person outside of that trio really step up in a game.
Yeah, I think Purdue's depth comes in that they're not deep in that they're going to have 4 guys go off every game out of the non-big 3, but more often than not, they're going to have at least one play really, really well. And given how good and high usage Braden and TKR are, sometimes that's kind of all that they need to be able to do. So yeah, like it was good to see him knock down the 3. I also thought like Queen had 26 points. And let me look at his shot chart. I think he had like 4 makes at the rim. I should have had this up already. Okay, no, he had like 1, 2, 3, 4. He had 6 at the rim, and then he went 4 of like 10 outside of the paints. And like, I thought Heidi did fine on him. I don't think like it's a tough matchup for really anybody, let alone Heidi, who is giving up a lot of size on him. But I don't. Maybe when I rewatch, I'll pick it up more. But I don't remember specifically being like, oh man, Queen is just absolutely continually cooking Heidi because there's so much of a size disadvantage, right? When he gets in the post, they'll send that double team. It felt a lot more of just like Queen crashing the glass, Queen hitting jumpers, Queen cutting type things, which he's phenomenal at.
Yeah. Plus, it just seemed like whoever was on Queen was cooking. Like,
yeah.
So it didn't really matter. The only thing that I remember, like, just typing real quick, like Cam had a hand in his face and like Queen just kind of turned and shot right over him. Like he was not even there, which is why he's going to be a first rounder. But yeah, I mean, all in all, did okay. I thought defensively on him, did as good as anybody else, I guess, that guarded him throughout this game.
Yeah, I think across the board for me, it wasn't like a great defensive game for anybody. I think Maryland got a lot of good looks. They crashed the glass well. Purdue was just able to have a little bit better offense at the end of the day, and that is what allowed them to win. But we only have a few more players to kind of get through in this. Colvin is going to be the one that we'll talk about next in terms of specific players. Have the stats up there. Colvin, 4 points on 2 of 5 shooting, 0 of 2 from 3, 7 rebounds with 4 of them offensive, 1 turnover, 1 block in 25 minutes. Both of his buckets come off of putbacks, and should have had a third that he just kind of missed the dunk on. It was very good to see him crash the glass as hard as he did. And it was very explosive, and it was some big time points that Purdue needed at those moments in games. It is great to see, and it has not just been one-off games at this point. It has honestly been a decent bit of games, right? Where like, hey, Lawyer didn't score the ball well, but like he impacted this game, and he made a positive impact on this game. And this is one of those where, the shot doesn't fall. It is what it is, but he still is doing things that helps Purdue. And I don't think he was great defensively. Gillespie's the type of player that's a really tough cover for him, though. And just the way that he's shifty and can get around screens well and things like that. So that's one where it's just like Purdue has to try to figure out something. Colvin's going to get the chance. But I still think overall it was a solid Colvin game.
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, just the big difference this year compared to last year is he's able to impact the game outside of his scoring. The 7 rebounds were huge. Like I said, great to see him getting in there and crashing the glass. He had some really nice defensive moments. You know, he does a really nice job staying in front of Gillespie the one time and forces him into the travel. He doesn't get a steal out of that, but it still leads to a turnover. But like you said, that's a really tough cover. Painter mentioned a couple times he got a little bit lost out there just on rotation, but all in all impacts the game in a super positive way. If he'd have gotten that third putback dunk, that would have been special, I think, from a highlight reel standpoint. Several highlight dunks today with his one putback and, you know, Cam's alley-oop and drive also on the baseline. So always good to see. I think one of the really interesting things for me in this game was the fact that Painter played 10 guys in like the first 10 minutes of this game, basically. Obviously, with TKR getting into foul trouble, that kind of drives that. I thought it was really interesting to see Burgess be the first off the bench. I personally wouldn't draw too much from that, the fact that Burgess was the first off the bench for him, because Painter talks a lot about like wanting to keep his rotations a certain way to have the right people together. And to me, it just almost felt like he was trying to buy the allotted time that TKR would normally have with Burgess so that he could keep everybody else in the rotation that he wanted. But then he goes to a Wilberg Caleb first rotation in there too. So I don't know. It felt a little bit like he was throwing a little bit of everything at the wall, which shout out Berg also, like, came in, shoots a nice little hook shot, scores, looked fairly decent for the very limited amount of time that he was out there. But what did you see from Raleigh? Because we talked about this offline, but I guess what were your thoughts there?
On Burgess, is that what you said?
Yeah.
I mean, he misses the wide open layup, which is tough and just seems like a theme for some of these Purdue bigs. I think he was like, if I'm remembering correctly, he did a good job walling up once. Would have had a chance for a pick and pop 3, but mishandled the ball later in the first half in his like little 1 minute stretch, if I'm remembering correctly. I think the way I would phrase it, it felt like there was no drop off per se.
Right.
Like, I don't know if he only has 4 minutes in the game. It's not like he's like, oh, he needs to impact the game in a magnitude, grand magnitude within 4 minutes. But like within those 4 minutes, there was no like, oh man, Burgess, like, why is he out there? It was like, yeah, another serviceable big for Purdue. That's kind of my takeaway from 4 minutes, which is not the easiest to draw a big conclusion from.
Yeah, obviously, but I do think it's at least nice an improvement when from the early season when he would come in, it would be like, oh, like glaring mistake, cooked by a guard on defense, or just like throwing his body into a guy instead of walling up. Gets a nice tough rebound in there while he's in there. Obviously smokes the layup, but like you said, I thought it was decent minutes, and I kind of felt like for the most part everybody that came in gave decent minutes and contributed in some way. Obviously wasn't CJ's best offensive game or ball handling game. He ends up getting almost 11 minutes today. So I think Painter obviously saw something there that he thought he wanted CJ out there for. I did feel, I know he gets the 3 turnovers. It doesn't make any of his shots today, but there's still something for me just of I guess the pace and the attack mode that Purdue as offense can be in when he's out there, where you feel like Braden can attack off the bounce. You feel like CJ has got a little bit more shiftiness to him, maybe handling the ball than your other options that you could have out there. And then, Lawyer obviously can use leverage and get downhill too. So I think there's something just that makes that lineup just a little bit more unique in terms of the way Purdue operates offensively. Obviously, didn't see huge dividends from it today from CJ, but I think we will at some point.
If CJ made some shots, he would have played closer to 20 minutes in this game. Painter wanted to go to him. He went to him very, very quickly in that second half, took Colvin out. CJ wasn't making shots. He was turning it over. So it's like, okay, at that point, you go throw back Colvin back in just because he was providing good rebounding at that point. Yeah, like it wasn't a great CJ game, but at the same time, it's still, he needs to get minutes because he can be a guy that can go create a shot. Shot does quietly just need to fall. And it is harder for him. Like, I'm hoping if he can start even getting closer to 10 minutes a game, he can start getting into a little bit better rhythm. Right? He's 6 of 20. He's 30% on the year. And basically 5 of those makes came in 2 very short stretches of gameplay this season. Played 19 last game, played 11 this game. I'm just going to be curious to see, does he get anywhere from 10 to 15 next game? And if he can start getting in that rhythm, the shots probably should start falling a little bit more. And then when the shots are falling, it makes it a lot harder to take him off the floor because he can handle the ball. He's not Braden level with the ball. And honestly, I think I trust Jakari handling the ball right now more. But aside from Braden, there's really nobody on this team that can create a shot like CJ Cox.
Yeah. So I trust Jakari handling the ball in terms of protecting the ball, but yeah. CJ can create with the ball in his hand in a different way in terms of using his dribble to get to a shot. And I think guys that do that, have that creativity, naturally will turn the ball over a little bit more because they're using it in a little bit different way, right? To try to create space, to try to create an advantage, to get to that jumper or whatever it is that he does. And if he doesn't smoke that layup, that's probably the play of the game in terms of a move where, right, at the top of the key where he cooks. The one guy kind of loses his balance a little bit, and then he gets around him and then just smokes that layup off of that. And there was a lot of oohs and ahs in the stadium until the ball didn't drop at that moment. So,
yeah, I'm trying to remember. Did he? I felt like it. I'm watching it right now because I wanted to remember that play. So it brings it up in transition. Oh, literally everybody just left him. And then he drives into the teeth of the defense. Reese does a good job contesting the block. But yeah, or contesting the shot. But yeah, CJ Cox, he's going to at some point have another Bama type game. It's going to happen where it's just oh yeah, this dude comes in and scores 13 points in 3 minutes. And Purdue's going to need that, especially against some teams where it's hey, how are we creating a shot? Because Braden can't get any separation. CJ's next in line in terms of being able to do that for himself. Anything else for CJ? I don't want to cut you off on CJ.
No, that's it. That's all I got. Move to Jakari.
We can go to Jakari. Jakari, no points, 0 for 1 from 3. The only shot attempt he had was that kind of it was the end of the half, kind of not heave, but really tough shot. No stat line, no steals, nothing, no rebounds, anything like that. His is, hey, he handled the ball well, was helping break the press. He didn't do much offensively. He was another one, him and CJ both. I think defense was solid, and then there was, except for a few plays where they just got cooked by Gillespie, and it happened to both of them. And that's just where they're at. I think going forward, especially if the shot can fall for really either of them, matchups like this where it's a smaller, quicker, shiftier guard that is the lead for a backcourt, it feels like those translate more to CJ and Jakari games. It was unfortunate for this one that neither of them could really hit a shot to get going. At that point, you go back to Colvin for the size and the rebounding. I don't have too much more on Jakari, right? I don't know if there's much more to add really to him.
No. I think you hit it. So we can go ahead and move to Caleb. Obviously has that missed dunk, which I honestly just felt bad for him in that situation. Goes 2 for 3 from The field ends up with 5 points, does get that and one where he gets the free throw. Thought he had a really nice, tough offensive rebound where he gets a putback, and I think that's the one that he got the and one off of. I guess your thoughts just in terms of what Caleb did defensively out there or offensively, but I thought he provided some nice moments, even though he smokes that dunk. I do think that stretch where he got in there with TKR and just took some of the pressure off of Trey from a defensive standpoint to allow Trey to kind of stay out of foul trouble. I do think those moments are big for Purdue, and you hope you get some offensive contribution out of him as well.
Yeah, this is the first game. Obviously, the missed dunk is brutal, but he does go 2 of 3 on the day. He has a nice and one where was the and one off the roll, I think, and then he might have had a putback also, if I'm remembering correctly.
He had a tough offensive. Yeah, he had a tough offensive rebound and putback. I don't remember which one the and one came from exactly.
But yeah, I mean, if he doesn't miss the dunk, like it's a good Caleb first game, right? He converts a little bit around the rim. Queen bodied him a little bit when he was on him. But like you said, it allowed TKR to stay off of Queen a little bit too, which also does help. He just gives them the versatility that's needed, right? He gives them the versatility of, hey, we can throw in an athletic 5 if we need to. That'll hold up defensively against some of these bigger teams. Only 1 offensive rebound on the game, 1 rebound total. But kind of the theme with this bench, and honestly, for a good chunk of these games is going to be, are you just not messing up defensively, right? With just how high of usage Braden and TKR are going to have, there's not going to be that many opportunities for a lot of these guys to really go score and go create and all of that. It's, hey, can you rebound well? Hey, are you not getting burned defensively? Caleb only has 1 rebound in his time. Defensively, I thought he was solid, not great, not terrible. And that's, I don't know, that feels a realistic expectation for Caleb first.
Yeah. And I think that's basically what you hope for, that he can do some nice things defensively, take some pressure off. You hope for some offensive output, but more than anything, limit mistakes, play good athletic defense as a big, and protect Treys. That's my thought anyway of what I like to see from there. I don't have a lot else on this game. If we want to go through some comments, give out some game balls. Let's do game balls first. I'll let you go first this time. I usually take yours.
Braden Smith. He gets the game ball for me. 24 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds. Not manipulated, but just took what the defense gave him, and just he had the Braden Smith masterclass in that second half of just hey, I'm the best player on the floor. I'm going to play like it. And without him for any game, but especially this game, Purdue does not win this without a doubt.
Without a doubt. I'm going to give it to TKR. I think those are the 2 that it has to go to this game. Huge second half. Able to get Reese into some foul trouble, and then just really went at Queen, I felt like, and just realized he had the advantage and knew he had to do it, and ends up with 8 rebounds. Again, I think I'm just going to keep stressing that TKR can't just be a scorer. He's got to be a rebounder if this team's going to be able to play that lineup and win consistently. I don't have a lot of starred comments because we had so much kind of floating back and forth that I did not do a good job keeping watch of the chat. Andy in Colorado says Todd Mitchell was the 3rd. Yeah, sorry about that. I think I was 7 at the time that the 3 amigos were playing, maybe a little bit older, but my memory's not quite as good on that. I always remember those 2 for some reason, but I always struggle with the 3rd. So thank you for that. Todd Mitchell was the 3rd, 3 amigo. Jeff Parks says Purdue needs to stop Wade Taylor. He reminds me a lot of Cam Jones. We will have a preview show coming up for the Texas A&M game. We actually get a little bit of a break here with it being finals week, so we have a few days. It feels like these last few we've had to kind of turn around at different times and try to get them done pretty quick, so we'll have a little bit of time to do that. I agree with you to a degree, Jeff. I don't think that Wade Taylor is nearly as efficient as what Cam is personally. He can have some super inefficient games just from a shooting standpoint. We'll get into that a lot more unless you have anything you really want to say there right now, Joe.
I mean, Wade Taylor's good. He is a type of guard that just naturally gives Purdue problems, athletic score. But like you said, we'll dive more into that in the preview. The big thing is going to be can Purdue not give up 35 offensive rebounds? Not 35, but legitimately can Purdue not give up 20 offensive rebounds? I don't think 20 is out of the question for how this A&M team rebounds.
All right. Look forward to that. Rowlett Boiler says, have to agree with G Wizzy. That's Greg Waddell, our friends over at Sleeper Media, that we have to start getting more out of these two guards off the bench if we want to continue to win, especially on the road. I think we would probably all agree that we need to get more contributions from those two off the bench, whether you're looking at that from a scoring standpoint or everything else that they bring to the game. I would also point to the fact that they are exactly, I think, 1/3 of the way through their first season as freshmen on this team and are still kind of finding their role and their niche. And I, for one, am not worried about that yet. If they're still not really contributing from a scoring standpoint at game 20, maybe I'll start to worry about that a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think my thing is the scoring should hopefully come in time. I think they're both good enough scores that it will. The big thing, though, is that like they still are giving stuff. It just doesn't show up in box scores. Like I think anybody that like if the people that watch Shikari and think that he just completely sucks right now and is unplayable, like I don't know, like it just doesn't feel right to me. Can he be better? Yes, absolutely. Does he need to knock down shots? Absolutely. But he still provides stuff moving the ball with defense. CJ Cox still provides stuff with his ability to just create advantages against defenses, plus still playing defense. Just need a few more shots to fall. Like if a few more shots fall, I think people are talking about these Purdue freshmen way differently. So
100%.
Do you have anything else for this game?
I do not.
Yeah.
Big win, good win. I got one last thing. I know they're going into finals week, but there were some empty seats in the student section around Mackey, which just kind of blew my mind. That just didn't happen the last 2 years. And it was the upper rows. There was still plenty of students here, but man, we got to do better, man. Students, you've got to pack the student section. This team is still really, really good. Are they a national championship runner-up team? I don't know, but man, 7 years ago, like people would have been going nuts, and this place would have been packed to the gills for a team this good.
Yeah, I mean, as I started at Purdue, 6-7 years ago, and yeah, like I mean, from day I don't remember a time at Purdue since then where it's like empty. Even that 2020 team that wasn't great, like they were like 500 or so in Big Ten play, that was still packed. I was in the paint crew. It was packed, and it was very shocking to see. Hopefully, it's just a one-off from finals week. I know next one will be the next home game is until December 29th, which is Toledo. That'll be a break game, and then they play Northwestern at home on January 5th, which is when Purdue students should be getting back. After that, though, I would expect this place to be packed. I would be shocked if it isn't. But yeah, it was weird to see that. So good win for Purdue today, getting the 83-78 win over Maryland. Next game is December 14th against Texas A&M, 12 p.m. Eastern time on CBS in Indy. So for me, it'll be a shorter commute, which will be very, very nice. I got to admit, but appreciate everybody tuning in. On the way out, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell notification, and you'll know exactly when we go live for all of these. We'll have the preview out for Texas A&M sometime this week. I don't know exact dates. I would guess anywhere between Tuesday and Thursday is when it will happen. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be back, like I said, Saturday post game for sure against Texas A&M. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will catch you all then.